Hello and welcome to Chapter 13's video lecture. Today's video lecture is all about negotiation. Trying to negotiate an agreement at the end of the sale between you and the prospective client. Now, Chapter 14 is going to be all about closing, but Chapter 13 really is the negotiation before closing. If you can get your negotiation out of the way, and if you can play win-win so that you win as well as the prospect wins, then closing is easy. Closing comes very, very quickly. Negotiation is also about handling objections. Handling objections could be price, it could be time, but more importantly, a lot of it is resistance to change. I'm happy with what I've got, or I know with what I've got, I'm not exactly sure about your product. This is new to me. My job's on the line, those types of things. So we're going to talk about negotiating and handling buyers' concerns, and we're going to also talk about handling objections. We're going to role play this when we get together in class again on Monday. But until then, at the end of the video lecture, though, I'm going to give you a break this time. At the end of the video lecture, you'll see 2 pages of review questions. You do not have to, let me repeat that again. You do not have to write a 2-page paper on those questions. You've had plenty of homework this week, and so I don't expect you to do that. But I would like you to review those questions and make sure that you understand them, because they will be covered on the next quiz. Until we get together, I'm looking forward to it. This is negotiation. So as stated in the introduction, this is all about negotiating buyers' concerns. If you'll remember, there's really the 6-step process in sales that we've talked about most of the semester. And the first one is the approach, breaking the ice and establishing rapport. And then need discovery, and that's all about spin selling. And we've talked a lot about spin selling since we got together. The presentation, the negotiation, the close, and then servicing the sale. Right now we are on the negotiation phase. We talked about presentation, and again, when we get together on Monday, I'm going to give you a lecture on elements of a successful presentation. So negotiation is really nothing more than working to reach an agreement. The buyers have some of the things that they want. The sellers have things that they want. Oftentimes terms, conditions, price, resistance to change, delivery, those types of things can get in the way of a close. Very, very few sales go right from presentation to close. Oftentimes there's objections, oftentimes there's negotiations that have to be done, etc. Sometimes negotiation is done after the sale. So someone agrees to purchase, and then the negotiation starts from there. Oftentimes, however, before the sale is closed, the negotiation happens. And again, we're looking at handling objections. Maybe your price is too high. We're looking at maybe they want better terms, better conditions, etc., etc. So negotiation is really working to reach a mutually agreed upon and satisfactory conditions for both buyers and sellers. The key thing is to plan for negotiation. One of the things that you want to make sure that you do is you've got to understand, what do I want and what do I think the prospect or the buyer wants. So we need to anticipate the buyer's concerns and review the methods of negotiation. We also need to review who's going to be negotiating for the buyer. Is it going to be the buyer himself? Is it going to be a team? Is it going to be their legal team? Is it going to be safety, production, or what have you? Oftentimes, it's important to prepare a negotiation worksheet. Sometimes it's not price. Sometimes it's amount of product or something like that. So one of the things, if you anticipate what the buyer is going to say, if you anticipate what their concerns are, it's easier to handle it. Oftentimes when you discover their needs and you do a good job of discovering their needs, well, then negotiation comes fairly quickly after that because they have a need for your product and they have a want for your product. So anticipating the buyer's concerns. Then activities during negotiation is understanding and not understanding verbal clues. What is the body language saying for the prospect? Are they sitting with their arms folded? Are they sitting with their arms open? If their arms are open, that means they're more open to negotiation. If they're folded, that means that they're not listening. They've made up their mind. Ask, what is it that you want? What's holding up the sale? What is it that you want? And here's what I want. So questioning, again, going back to your spin selling, asking them, what are the problems? What's happening? Why are we not closing this sale? Emotions need to be taken out of this. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we're negotiating from a business standpoint, not from a personal standpoint, etc. And again, once you find out the customer's concern, I think the better off you'll be. And there's nothing wrong with saying, what's holding it up? What's your concern? Let me help you with that. If you can do that, I think that we can get to a close a lot easier. So planning for the formal negotiation, again, that's really one of the first steps, and that's gathering information before. Oftentimes a salesperson knows what the objections are going to be before because they've had objections from other buyers that are similar. So, oftentimes a sales rep knows that their price might be the highest in the industry, but they have better value, better service, or something like that. Oftentimes, sales rep might know that their service might be a little slower, but they've got the better price, or maybe delivery is a problem or something like that. So oftentimes, within the sale, and you get an objection or you get some concerns around the negotiation, you know what that's going to be actually before you even go in. So planning for that, planning on how to handle those objections, planning on how to negotiate that more effectively, I think is really, really helpful in the sale. Now, with that being said, also sometimes objections come out from left field. Sometimes things are just, you can't anticipate. And in that particular case, then you've got to think quickly on your feet. So one of the things that you can do is understand the value that you offer. Make sure you have an agenda. Make sure that you understand the questioning, understand the spin sellings. Oftentimes people will write down questions and things like that pre-sale or pre-meeting, and that way they have a good idea of what they're going to ask, why they're going to ask them, etc. The other thing is this. Understand that in some cases, you're going to need to walk away. And in some cases, the buyer's going to need to walk away. If your price can only be so low and the buyer wants a different price, well, sometimes you just got to walk away. Or if the buyer wants it by Tuesday and you can't possibly get it to them until Thursday, you can handle that objection. But if the buyer's stuck and says, I really need it on Tuesday, then you have to walk away. So one of the things that you've got to be prepared within the negotiation is understand, what do I really need? What is my minimum? And if I can't get that minimum, maybe it's minimum delivery, maybe it's minimum price, maybe it's service or what have you. If you can't get that minimum, you need to be prepared to walk away. You're not going to make every sale. So I teach all BATNA in negotiating when we teach organizational behavior. And I also teach ZOPA, Zone of Possible Agreement, in that. Never put a whole lot of emphasis on BATNA. It's best alternative negotiation agreement. And just as I was saying before, what is it that you want? What is it the buyer wants? And there's nothing wrong with asking, what is it that you want? What price is it going to be to make this sale? Where are we? How far are we apart? And then if the buyer says something that, I need this price, and you can't possibly make that price, well then, you part friends. You shake hands and you part friends. But with regards to negotiation, Sometimes you can meet them halfway, and you can talk to the buyer and say, well, I can't get you that price, but based on the value I'm giving you, I can get you this price, or what have you. And I talk a lot about price because oftentimes, price is one of the objections that come up. But it could be many, many other things. It could be just resistance to change. I don't know your company. I know what I'm getting with what I'm buying. I don't know your company. And if that's the particular case, well, then you've got to either use testimonials or somehow to overcome that objection so that you can reach an agreement. But BATNA is best alternative negotiation. What alternatives is acceptable to you? What alternatives is acceptable to the potential client or the potential buyer? Once you get that on the table, you can determine whether you can make that or not. Once you get that on the table, that becomes a zone of possible agreement. The space between where you are and where you need to be, or where the the buyer wants you to be, that becomes a zone of possible agreement. Sometimes in that zone, you can meet. Sometimes you can't. But again, you need to be prepared to be able to walk away. So handling objections, price too high, maybe you haven't given a reason or value. I want to think about it. Maybe they're afraid to do business with your company. Maybe they don't have the authority to buy. Maybe they're afraid to make a bad decision. All these types of things. And I like this table because these basically are going to be the objections you're going to get. Price is too high. I want to think about it. I need to talk to my boss. I need to get more quotes. I've had this happen to me many, many times. You're the first one I've looked at. I've got to look at other companies. And sometimes that's the case. They just have to look at other companies. And if that's the case, you say, great. When can I follow up? When can I get back to you? When do you think that that'll happen? And sometimes if you have a bad history with a previous sales rep, the company has a bad history with a previous sales rep of your company or something like that, that you have to overcome too. So I really like this table. This table does do a lot of work with regards to trying to understand and some of the objections that you're going to get as you move through it. So conducting the negotiating session, understand the problem, understand where you need to be. Again, the BATNA, where they need to be. Start coming up and thinking creative. Ask the buyer, what creative solutions can we come by in order to meet in our zone of possible agreement? Acknowledge points. Review. All right, well, you've already agreed that this and this and this are important to you. And they're important to most customers. Where we're stuck is on this particular issue. But wouldn't you say that these issues, the ones that you really like, outweigh the one that we're stuck on? Or can we get closer on the one that you're stuck on based on the fact that you really like these particular issues? So lots of ways to handle that. I love the use of summarizing, especially summarizing the points that's been agreed upon previously, summarizing solutions to the particular buyer's problems. Don't make concessions too quickly. There's plenty of time for that on either end. And again, if you look at the last bullet on this particular slide, sometimes you just gotta walk away. So negotiating across cultures, this is not a international sales course. This is really, we're concentrating on just really the process of sales and the different steps in the sales, starting from the approach all the way through the close and servicing the sale. So this is really not a international sales class. There are international sales classes that you can take here at St. John Fisher, but one of the things that you need to understand is when you are selling across different cultures, things change. Some different cultures take longer to negotiate. Some cultures say yes when they mean they understand. Some cultures, several meetings might need to take place. So one of the things that we need to do as we are selling across different cultures and selling across different nations and selling internationally is to do your homework first. Understand the culture. Maybe talk to someone from that culture. Understand that culture so that your negotiations are easier and your sales is easier. One of the things is we don't want to look like is we don't want to look insensitive to other cultures around the world. That's the first thing that could possibly derail a sale. So understanding types of buyers' concerns. Really, the concerns are about the product. The concerns could be about the price. The concerns could be about the service. And with service, I mean delivery or warranties or things like that. With the price also comes the terms. Some people might want net 30. Some people might want net 90 days. Some might want other different terms and conditions that you can't provide. So all the terms and conditions are related to price. Some concerns are related to time. I don't have time to look into this today. I don't have time to meet with you today, etc. One of the things that we need to talk about when it comes to time is I can save you time by providing a solution to your problem. And then finally, relating to source. I don't know your company. I know what I'm doing here. I know who I've worked with. I know that I've worked with these people in the past, and I've liked them. I know what I get with those. So methods for negotiating buyers' concerns, either direct denial, you're wrong, or indirect denial, meaning I can see how you might think that, or I can see how that might be true in some respects, and generally speaking, the indirect denial is much better than the direct denial. Telling a prospect or customer you're wrong or arguing, being argumentative, is often not the way to go when you're talking about selling. So oftentimes you soft sell the fact that the buyer is wrong by saying, I can see how you might feel that way, or I can understand how you might think that. However, especially when they're comparing your product to another product, they might say something like, your competitor's product is more durable than yours. And instead of saying you're wrong, we've got a more durable product, you can say, I see how you might think that, but evidence shows, or our data shows that. And that way you're soft selling the indirect denial and not just simply arguing with the prospect. So those are some of the things that salespeople use to soft sell, so to speak, and not become argumentative. It's kind of like, would it be helpful? That's another nice transition phrase that sales reps can use in order to make sure that they're understanding that they have a solution to a problem. So methods of negotiating buyer concerns, obviously questioning. Why do you think that? Who told you? What's happening? Demonstrations are excellent. Testimonials are excellent, and that's third-party testimonials. Questionings, benefits, all those types of things are extraordinarily important when negotiating with buyers and buyers' concern. So oftentimes, and if you look at a lot of different sales books, they're going to concentrate on overcoming price objections. Very, very few people are going to say, wow, I love your price, or you got a great price, or what have you, unless, of course, you're Walmart. And most of us are not going to sell for the lowest price provider. Oftentimes, the reason that we're not going to sell for the lowest price provider is if you have the lowest price, generally speaking, you don't need sales reps. All you have to do is advertise your price. So most of us are going to sell to it for a company or for companies, multiple companies, as we go through our career that are not the lowest price. And you're always going to be compared with the lowest price. And the best way to overcome price objections is to show value. That we aren't the lowest price, however, you're going to get higher quality, you're going to get better service, you're going to get all of those types of things. Most companies are not built on lowest price. If that was the case, then Walmart would be the only retailer in the world. And as we know, They're not. If you look at, say, Amazon, Amazon is not built on the lowest price, but they have the best service of any really retail outlet that I can think of. And that includes brick and mortar. You know, you click, they tell you what you bought last time, they tell you what other people bought that are similar to you, they tell you what other people bought when you bought this. And if you've got Amazon Prime, it shows up on your door 2 days later. That is tremendous service. But if you look, you could probably find it cheaper at Walmart. Now, a lot of people do business with Amazon. It's the same thing with Target. Target is not as cheap as Walmart, but most people, or many people, would say their quality is better. So you're always going to get price objections. You're always going to get price objections. So one of the things that you've got to do is show value. Ask questions. You can see how can you see how this would solve your problem? Can you see how this product, the service offerings that we're doing, and all those types of things to justify the fact that you're not the lowest price? I have never sold for a company that was the lowest price. As a matter of fact, most of the time when you have professional sales reps, they pay professional sales reps because they're not the lowest price provider. So with professional sales reps, you're going to have to overcome the price objection. You're going to have to show value. You're going to have to show that you are worth your company, your product, your service. The package that comes with what you're trying to sell is worth the price. Never apologize for your price. Never say, yeah, I know our price is too high. Never say that. I mean, oftentimes we do like to agree with the buyer, but not when it comes to this. Show them the entire package. We're not just talking about price here. We're talking about the entire package, which provides value. Demonstrate differences. Show testimonials that people have bought it, etc., etc. Now, in some particular case, you're going to have to meet the price. If it's the same product, the same terms, the same everything, you're going to have to meet the price. And if you can't meet the price, that's when you have to walk away. So, if all things being equal, if you are a higher price, then the buyer is going to go with someone who is lower priced than you. And remember, when we talked about it at the beginning of the semester, the buyers have all the power because they can price shop you with the click on their phone, with the click of a mouse on the computer. So it's easy to price shop you. But if you can show value, then you can overcome the price objections. So working with buyers trained in formal negotiation, there's a lot of different negotiation tactics that the buyers use. There's a lot of different negotiation tactics that they're trained on. But again, if you've shown the buyer how they can, your product or your service can solve their problem, if you've used your spin selling and set up the sale well, when it comes to negotiation, you have a solid foundation which to stand. There's a lot of different tactics. Budget limitation, I can only pay so much, take it or leave it tactic. Oftentimes, if they say take it or leave it, if that's their final offer and it's not your best alternative, if it's not your lowest possible alternative, then you have to leave it. Let's split the difference. Sometimes that's a good. If you're meeting in your ZOPA, then splitting the difference oftentimes is a good tactic, all right? Let's gain share. And let me tell you, as we solve more of your problems, then I can raise my price or I can provide, get more of a win-win type of situation. Sell low now, make profits later tactic. That's fine as long as you get that in writing. Oftentimes, you can do that. You can sell now lower than what you want, but as they continue to do business and as they buy more, the price of the product or the cost of the product could go down as your manufacturing costs lower. And you can actually make higher profits later based on a ramp up type of thing. But It's important to get that in writing and part of the negotiation and part of the contract. So that concludes. There's two pages of review questions. There's 5 review questions. This is page 1 of page 2. This concludes the lecture for this week. Again, you do not, I know I'm giving you a break, but you do not have to do a 2-page paper on these review questions. You do need to understand the review questions, these questions as well as these questions, because it's important to understand the key concepts that are involved in this chapter. With that being said, the next chapter is closing, and I will see you all on Monday.